Prologue: The Silent Path of the Modern Shinobi. In 15th century Japan, amidst the chaos of warring clans and power struggles, a group of mysterious warriors emerged from the shadows. They were known as the Shinobi no Mono, the ones who infiltrated, spied, and completed their missions without leaving a trace. They weren't fighters who relied on brute strength, but on strategy, patience, and calm. While samurai were known for their honor and open combat, shinobi were known for their secrecy and silence. They used the night as their cover. They listened more than they spoke. They studied their enemies without ever being seen. They walked alone, without a name, without recognition, without praise. Yet every mission they completed, no matter how small, often shaped the course of history. The shinobi weren't just martial arts experts. They were masters of observation, planning, and self-control. They understood that one perfectly timed silent step was more valuable than 1,000 rushed ones. They lived by one core principle: the unseen is the most dangerous. Centuries passed. The world changed. Swords were replaced by smartphones, secret scrolls by instant messages, and physical fortresses by digital algorithms. Yet the values of the shinobi never truly disappeared. Only their form changed. Now, in an era flooded with artificial light, cameras, and public attention, the shinobi's path feels increasingly rare, and precisely because of that, increasingly valuable. Have you ever felt tired of the world's noise? Everything is so loud. Status updates, posts, opinions, proving ourselves, the spotlight. We live in a time where everyone wants to be seen, and the louder we shout, the more we feel like our lives have meaning. But amidst all that noise, there are those who walk in silence. They don't talk much, they don't seek the spotlight, yet their steps quietly shake the earth. These are the modern shinobi. In ancient Japanese tales, shinobi were known as ninjas, shadow warriors, scouts, masters of emotion. But beyond the black outfits and fighting techniques, there's a much deeper philosophy. Master yourself before you master the world. In the past, shinobi trained to be unseen by their enemies. Today, we train not to be trapped by the world's spotlight. Back then, they moved under the cover of night. Today, we move in the silence of our own minds. Back then, they penetrated physical fortresses. Today, we penetrate the fortress of our own ego. I once met a man, a simple guy, who worked as a barista in a small cafe. No one knew that outside his working hours, he was building an online education platform that would help thousands of students in remote areas. He never posted about his progress, never talked about his struggles, didn't even tell his coworkers. He just worked quietly night after night with one principle: let the results speak for themselves. A few years later, that platform blew up on social media. Many thought its creator was a big team behind a famous startup, but the truth was, it was just one person, working in silence for years. A modern shinobi who didn't need applause. That is the core of this path. You don't need to be seen to be influential. The modern shinobi doesn't live for the spotlight. They live for the mission. And that mission is often so personal, so quiet, that only they truly understand why they're doing it. Being a shinobi today doesn't mean running away from the world. On the contrary, it's about mastering yourself in a world that constantly wants to master you. When others rush to speak, you choose to listen. When they flaunt their achievements, you stay silent and keep practicing. When they're busy proving themselves, you're quietly creating something undeniable. You might not have a black outfit or a sword at your hip, but you have the priceless asset of silence, a focus few possess and a discipline that is your sharpest weapon. A shinobi never seeks attention because they know attention can kill the mission. It's the same in life. Too often we lose our way because we're busy convincing others that we're moving forward, when the truth is, the real work is to keep walking even when no one is watching. When in a world that talks too much, silence is a form of intelligence. In a world full of show-offs, secrecy is a form of power. And in a world obsessed with speed, patience is the ultimate technique. Imagine a shinobi standing at the edge of a cliff in the dark. They're not rushed. They wait, listening to the whisper of the wind, reading the patterns of the leaves, counting their own heartbeats. That's how we should live. Alert, aware, calm, not reacting hastily to everything that pops up on our phone screens. Because every time we rush to answer a comment, retort a sarcastic remark, or prove we're right, we're actually revealing our position to the enemy, a world that judges everything by its outer appearance. The modern shinobi doesn't need validation because they know their worth from the calm they feel inside, not from their number of likes or followers. They don't compete with others, only with who they were yesterday. And when they succeed in defeating their own ego, they become undefeatable. I'm reminded of something an old teacher in Kyoto once told me. In an age where everyone wants to be unseen is the highest form of wisdom. That sentence changed my view of success. I used to think success was about being known, recognized, and respected. But it turns out true success is when you can live peacefully by your principles, even if no one knows. The life of a modern shinobi doesn't mean you have to hide from the world. It means you consciously choose when to appear and when to be silent, when to speak and when to just observe, when to act and when to wait, when to post a status and when to just write it down in your private journal. This isn't about being mysterious. It's about controlling yourself amidst the world's pressure to constantly perform. And that is the highest discipline for a person in this day and age. Being a modern shinobi means keeping your ideas to yourself until they're mature, then launching them when the time is right, doing good without an announcement, working hard without a stage, building inner strength without applause. Because every quiet action you take is practice. Every time you resist the urge to show off is a small victory. And every silent night you spend working, unknown to anyone, that is the very moment you are transforming into someone stronger. One day the world might find out who you are, or it might not. But that's not important. What's important is that the mission is complete and you did it with honor, calm, and integrity. So, on this page, at the start of this journey, I invite you to put on your shinobi attire. Not a black robe, but a mindset of silence. Hide your ego, protect your intentions, train your mind, and get ready to walk the quiet path that few dare to tread. Because in the end, the world doesn't always need more people who talk, but more people who move in silence and act decisively. And this is where your journey begins. Welcome to the silent path of the modern shinobi. You are no one's enemy, but you are your own greatest challenge.
Chapter 1. The Ninja's Path in the Digital Age. In the past, a shinobi lived in a world where secrecy was their primary weapon. They infiltrated castles, gathered intelligence, and completed missions without anyone ever knowing. Their success wasn't measured by the spotlight, but by how silently they could achieve their goal. Now, centuries later, we live in a world that's the complete opposite, a world where everything wants to be seen. Every step is recorded, every achievement is published, every success must be showcased to be considered real. We live in an age of constant validation, where our self-worth is measured by other people's reactions. And this is where the clash happens, between the silent path of the shinobi and the modern culture of the spotlight. A shinobi would never reveal what they were about to do. They moved in silence, letting the results speak for themselves. Yet in the digital era, we've become accustomed to the opposite, announcing every single step even before we've truly begun. I've started a new business yesterday. I'm writing a book. I'm starting a diet. I just joined a gym. We talk about our plans, not our process. We share our vision, not our action. And often, without realizing it, the energy that should be used for work is spent on proving ourselves. If the shinobi of the past lived by the motto, secrecy is protection, then the modern shinobi lives by a new motto, silence is strategy. To be unseen in an era of hyper-visibility isn't a sign of weakness, but a sign of inner strength. Because in a world thirsty for attention, the ability to hold back is the highest form of self-control. Imagine two people starting a big project. One is busy posting every small update, waiting for praise and recognition. The other is quiet, working, refining, repeating, failing, trying again, without anyone knowing. A few months later, the first one loses motivation because the responses aren't as big as they used to be, while the second one finally launches something that surprises everyone. That is the difference between living to be seen and living to grow. In the age of social media, we're almost required to be visibly active to be considered relevant. But the modern shinobi doesn't need that. They know that stillness is the space where true power grows. They work without announcements, learn without showing off, and build without validation. While others are busy seeking attention, they are busy preparing their momentum. Because they know, when the time is right, the world will see the results without any need for an introduction. Being unseen in the modern era doesn't mean hiding away completely. It doesn't mean being anti-social media or refusing to communicate. Rather, it's about consciously choosing what the world needs to know and what is better kept to yourself. Being unseen is about preserving your energy, not isolating yourself. It's about controlling your exposure, not shutting down socially. It's about mastering when to appear and when to be silent. There is a time to speak, but more often we need to listen. There is a time to show the results, but the process is always more sacred when it's protected. In silence, things grow stronger, just like a seed that can't be forced to grow under a spotlight. It can only grow in the quiet soil beneath the surface. That is how the shinobi principle works in the modern world, doing great work underground before finally emerging as a mountain. One afternoon, I heard a story about a content creator named Archon. He had millions of followers, his videos went viral, and every post was flooded with comments. But behind all that, Archon began to feel lost. Every time he created content, the thought that crossed his mind was no longer, is this useful? But rather, will this be liked? He was losing his sense of meaning. He realized he was no longer a creator, but a performer in an attention-starved arena. One day, without any announcement, he deleted all his social media accounts. His friends thought he was crazy. "You're throwing away all your followers?" they asked. Archon just smiled. "I just want to know who I am without them." Months passed without a word. No posts, no stories, no signs. But behind the screen, Archon was building something. A small platform to help young creators find the true meaning of their work, not just popularity. He worked alone in his small room, reading old books, rewriting his vision, refining his code, and every night having conversations with himself about his intentions. A year later, he launched the site, without a big promotion, without ads, without a countdown to launch. And interestingly, people came not because of hype, but because of the quality and the calmness that radiated from his work. Today, Archon is known not as a viral influencer, but as a silent mentor who helps many people create with consciousness. He became a digital ninja who teaches the art of working without showing off, of contributing without expecting anything in return. The modern shinobi doesn't erase themselves from the world. They only erase the noise that prevents them from knowing their true self. And from that place, real strength emerges. In the digital age, being unseen doesn't mean losing influence. On the contrary, it's from that invisibility that we build influence that is deeper, quieter, and more lasting. Maybe you won't delete all your accounts like Archon, but you can start by deleting the need to be seen. You can still be in the digital world, but with a new awareness that not everything has to be shared. Not every process needs to be announced. And not every achievement must be showcased. Because just like the shinobi of the past who moved without a sound under the night sky, you too can move through the modern world with silent yet certain steps. Your life is not a stage, but a training ground. And the best training is done without an audience.
Chapter 2: The Art of Keeping Secrets. Every great idea is born from silence, not from cheers, not from applause, and not from loud conversations in a cafe, but from a single quiet spot in someone's head, a place where imagination and conviction meet, undisturbed. Yet, in today's world, as soon as an idea appears, most people are tempted to share it immediately. We want to be heard, appreciated, or simply acknowledge that we're doing something great. What we don't realize is that every time we speak too soon about our dreams, we are leaking the energy of focus that should be channeled into making them real. Imagine your energy is like water in a jug. Every time you tell someone else your plan, even with good intentions, you pour a little bit of that water out. Once doesn't feel like much. Twice, and it might still seem full. But over time, before you know it, the jug is dry, and you've lost the strength to move. This is why the shinobi lived in secrecy. It wasn't because they were paranoid, but because they knew energy is the highest currency in any mission, and secrecy is how you keep that energy intact. A shinobi's survival depended on one thing: the ability to hold information. They never shared their plans, even with their own teammates, unless it was absolutely necessary. They knew the more mouths that knew, the greater the chance the mission would fail. So, they mastered the most difficult art in human life, restraining themselves from speaking. Today, that challenge is even harder. We live in an age where every little thought can become a post. Every new dream is immediately announced to the world. I'm going to start a startup. I have a cool idea for a firm. I'm starting a new business. Once it's said out loud, we feel satisfied, as if we're already halfway there, even though we haven't taken a single step. This phenomenon is called social dopamine, a false feeling that makes us feel productive just because other people know our plans. But in reality, the more we talk, the less we actually do. The modern shinobi understands that a secret isn't a deception. A secret is a boundary of awareness, knowing what needs to be shared and what must be guarded. When an idea is still fragile, don't let it out into a harsh world. Protect it like a newborn baby. Let it grow in the safest place possible, your own mind. Because the world isn't always ready to receive a big idea. And very often, the first comments that come are not encouragement, but doubt. The moment we are influenced by that doubt, our focus cracks. That's why keeping an idea to ourselves is not an act of fear, but an act of protection. The shinobi had a simple principle. You don't need to explain your path to those who are not walking with you. That sentence applies to every area of life. Not everyone deserves to know your moods. Not because they are bad people, but because they won't understand. And too much explanation only drains the energy that should be used for walking. There's one story that perfectly illustrates this philosophy, the story of Steve Jobs in the early days of Apple. In 1976, Jobs and his friend Steve Wozniak were nobodies. They were just two young guys working in a small garage belonging to Jobs' family in Los Altos, California. While their friends their age were busy showing off cars, parties, or social lives, Jobs spent his nights in silence, thinking about the future of the personal computer. He didn't make any grand announcements. There was no media, no big investors, not even a formal business plan. All there was an idea and the determination to work in silence. Wozniak later said in an interview, Steve was a mysterious guy. He didn't talk much about his plans,
But when he started working, you knew something big was going to happen. They built the first Apple computer quietly with their own hands from spare parts. Jobs didn't leak the details to anyone outside his small circle. He knew the world wasn't ready to hear a dream that big, a computer in every home. And because he chose silence, his focus wasn't fragmented. While the world was still busy talking about who had the coolest idea, Jobs and Wozniak were already executing. They weren't busy talking. They were busy working. The result? A small company from that garage ended up shaking the world. This is silent execution, the core principle of the modern shinobi. Working on something without an announcement. Building without applause. Launching without a notification. Let the world know only when the time is right. Because sometimes, talking too soon can make us lose our sense of urgency. We feel like we've done something when we've only been talking. For a shinobi, words without action are like smoke without fire. They vanish before giving any light. Silence doesn't mean being passive. On the contrary, in silence there's the purest form of movement. When we aren't busy explaining, we have more time to refine. When we aren't busy convincing, we have more energy to prove. When we stop talking, we start truly working. A friend once said to me, half jokingly, "But if I'm quiet, who will know I'm making progress?" I smiled and replied, "They'll know when the results appear, because results can't be hidden." The truth is simple. Silence doesn't make you invisible. It just makes you undisturbed. And from that stillness, something great can grow without pressure. Think about it. How many ideas have died because they were revealed too soon? How many dreams have lost their way because of too many opinions? How many grand plans have been shattered because they were exposed to the light of ego too early? The modern shinobi guards their dreams like a mission. They don't tell the world where they're going, but they arrive there faster than anyone. They write, practice, work, and learn in silence. Then when the time is right, the world is surprised because the result is already right in front of them. Keeping a secret isn't just about privacy. It's about protecting the intensity of your focus. Focus is a small flame. If you let everyone blow on it, it will go out before it can grow. But if you guard it in silence, it will burn brightly enough to light up the world. So, from now on, don't be in a hurry to tell people your dream. Let it grow in the dark, like a seed beneath the soil. Work in silence, until one day the world sees the result and says, "Where did all this come from?" And you will simply smile, like a shinobi who has just completed their mission, leaving a trail of success without a sound.
Chapter 3. Not every good deed needs to be known. There is an ancient saying often spoken by the shinobi. What is strongest need not be seen. What is purest need not be known. In our glittering world where every good deed can become content, that philosophy feels like a whisper from the past, soft yet piercing. We live in the era of broadcast virtue, a time where goodness is less about intention and more about who sees it. Yet, as the ninja taught, the true meaning of doing good is when no one knows who did it. In the past, a shinobi could save a village without ever giving their name. They would go out at night, do what had to be done, and vanish before dawn. No applause, no photos, no thank you. But for the shinobi, that was enough, because their goal wasn't recognition, it was balance. And in a modern context, being a shinobi means doing good without inviting the cameras. We no longer need to sneak through castle shadows. In the world of social media, that infiltration is now restraining ourselves from flaunting our good intentions. There is an interesting paradox today. We are encouraged to inspire by sharing our good deeds, but without realizing it, we can fall into the trap of ego,
wanting to look good, not be good. This subtle difference determines the direction of a person's life. Because when the goal of goodness is validation, then once the applause stops, the spirit dies with it. But when goodness is done in silence, it grows roots that penetrate the soil, giving life without needing to be seen. True goodness works like air. We can't see it, but we know it's there because we can still breathe. In the same way, an unpublicized good deed still has an effect, perhaps even a deeper one, because it comes without a motive. In shinobi terms, this is called kage no kokoro, the heart of shadow. It means to act from an unseen place for a good that is real. Let's look at the real world. The first story comes from Japan, where this philosophy grew. In 2011, after the great earthquake and tsunami in Tohoku, a story emerged that never went viral in the mainstream media. In a small, devastated village, residents found a large pile of food, water, and blankets in front of the town hall with no note saying who sent it. Years later, it was discovered that it came from a local businessman who had lost his entire family in the disaster. He didn't want to be named, saying, "If I am sincere, God knows. The world doesn't need to." He never appeared in the media. He never received an award, but hundreds of people survived because of his help. An unseen kindness, but its impact was eternal. Another story comes from New York. A man named Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix, once donated millions of dollars for education scholarships for Black students in the U.S. Yet for years, he did it anonymously. He was only found out because the institution receiving the donation was required to list the source in public documents. When asked why he chose to stay silent, his answer was simple. "If I talk about the donation, people will remember me. If I stay quiet, they will remember the cause." That is how a shinobi thinks, shifting the focus from the self to the mission. On the other side of the world, there is a simpler story, just as powerful. A young man in Bandung set aside half his salary every month to pay for lunch for the children at an orphanage near his workplace. No one knew, not even the orphanage staff. He dropped off the money at a small food stall in front of the orphanage with a short message that said, "For the children who eat here." For 2 years, he did this without stopping, until one day the stall closed because the owner passed away. The young man was only discovered when one of the children came asking why they could no longer eat there. When interviewed by a local journalist, he only said, "I just wanted them to eat without feeling pitied." It is this kind of nameless goodness that is the spirit of the modern shinobi. To act without a signature, to help without a claim. We might think, if I don't share the good I do, how can others be inspired to do the same? That's a fair question, but there's a difference between inspiring by quiet example and showcasing oneself in the name of inspiration. True inspiration doesn't come from a photo or a caption. It comes from an aura of sincerity that is felt even without words. There are people whose lives, when we look at them, we just know they are good, even though they never say a thing. Their goodness is felt, and that is enough. The modern shinobi chooses to be the wind behind the curtain. They set many things in motion, but don't need to be seen as the mover, because they know validation is an addiction. Once you taste it, you'll keep chasing it, and that is where your spiritual energy gets drained. Doing good in secret keeps the soul clean from ego. You're not busy waiting for a thank you. You aren't hurt when you're not appreciated. You just do it, and then you move on. Like a shadow passing over a wall in the late afternoon. Real, but needing no acknowledgement. Just as the shinobi refuse to be remembered, a true giver knows that the fruit of their goodness doesn't have to be enjoyed by them. They plant and let others harvest. Because all they need is the inner satisfaction, the feeling that the world is a slightly better place because they passed through it. Some might see this principle as too extreme in an age of openness, but that is precisely its unique value. To go against the current is the highest form of self-awareness. When everyone wants to be seen, to be unseen is a form of strength. When everyone is racing to speak, choosing silence is an art. When everyone wants to be known as a good person, to be good without being known is true excellence. Doing good secretly doesn't mean refusing collaboration. You can still help, inspire, or share, but without putting yourself at the center of the stage. You don't need a spotlight, just a small light in your heart that stays lit even when everyone else is busy turning each other's lights off. That is the core of the modern shinobi's way. A kindness hidden is a strength that cannot be taken away. So, starting today, if you want to help someone, do it without needing proof. If you want to give charity, let only two parties know, you and your God. And if you want to leave a mark on the world, make sure that mark can still be seen even when your name is no longer remembered. That is how a shinobi does good. Without a signature, without a spotlight, but with an effect that lives on in the hearts of the people it touches.
Chapter 4. The Shadow That Works. Focus, Discipline, and Consistency. For the shinobi, the night was not a time for sleep. For them, the night was a training ground. While the world slept, the shinobi sharpened their swords, strengthened their bodies, and trained their minds for calm. There was no audience, no applause, no cameras recording them. They trained in solitude, not because they had to, but because they knew true strength only grows in silence. That is the shinobi philosophy most difficult to imitate in the modern age, to practice without anyone needing to see. We live in an era where focus is the rarest commodity. Phone notifications, social media, world news, other people's opinions, they all compete for our attention. Every second, the world tries to shatter our focus into tiny fragments. Yet the shinobi knew a truth that has remained unchanged for hundreds of years. The one who can guard their mind from distraction will win, even before the battle begins. In the midst of digital noise, being focused is a new form of courage. While the world is busy chasing many things, a modern shinobi chooses one thing and sees it through to the end. Focus isn't just the ability to stare at one point. It's also the courage to ignore 1,000 other points. That's why, in shinobi training, they always started with one principle: to calm oneself before moving. Before running, they sat. Before attacking, they were still. Before starting, they took a deep breath and centered their entire awareness on one thing: today's mission. For the modern shinobi, that mission can be anything: writing, working, building a business, or creating something from nothing. But the spirit is the same. Not every battle needs a stage, and not every victory needs a spotlight. The shinobi training philosophy: consistency in the dark. The ninja of old didn't suddenly become agile or unbeatable. They were trained with one simple but brutal thing: endless repetition. The same movement was performed thousands of times until their bodies reacted automatically. That training was boring, silent, and sometimes painful. But that's where the magic was born, from something that didn't look impressive to anyone else. It's the same in modern life. We often want quick results, but forget that discipline is an invisible form of art. Consistency is a power that is slow but deadly, like water drops carving stone. It might not sound impressive, but the result is permanent. In the world of social media, discipline is rarely discussed because it doesn't make for interesting content. People like to see results, not the long, quiet process. However, for a modern shinobi, that is precisely the point of pride. Behind the screen, in the quiet room, during the hours unseen by anyone. They know every second used for training is an investment that can't be stolen. Every day lived with discipline is a step toward victory. And the greatest victory is when they can say in their heart, "I won against myself today."
silent productivity, working without a spotlight. The modern shinobi doesn't work to be seen, they work to get things done. They don't care if people know how hard they worked. What matters is that the result is real. This is what's called silent productivity, a quiet yet effective form of getting things done. In silent productivity, we aren't tempted to flaunt our busyness. No being productive posts on Instagram, no long status updates on LinkedIn, because we know the energy used to show productivity is energy that should have been used for the work itself. Work without sound. Let your results speak for themselves. Like a shinobi gliding through the night, swift, precise, and undetected. Let's look at a true story, one that could happen in our own circles. There was a man named Rama, an office worker in Jakarta. Every day he went to the office at 8 and left at 5, like most people. But there was something most people didn't know. After work, he didn't turn on the TV, hang out with friends, or scroll through social media. He sat in front of his old laptop and built a small business, an online store selling household goods. He did this quietly for 2 years. No one knew, not even his closest friends. He never talked about it on social media, never asked for advice. He learned on his own, failed on his own, and improved on his own. His nights were quiet, sometimes accompanied only by the sound of his laptop fan and a cup of black coffee. He knew no one cared about his silent struggle, but he also knew no one needed to care. Then one day, without a big announcement, his business began to grow. Orders came in from all over Indonesia. A year later, he left his corporate job to focus fully on his venture. His friends were shocked. "Since when did you have a business?" Rama just smiled and said, "Since everyone was busy talking, I chose to be busy working." Rama's story might be simple, but it's the real-life embodiment of the shadow that works philosophy. It's not about who is most visible, but who is most diligent when no one is watching. The modern world worships speed, but the shinobi knows that true victory is born from silent consistency. Focus, discipline, and work without applause. That is the core of the shadow's strength. Maintaining focus in a world full of distraction. We all know how it feels. You're just about to write, and your phone rings. You're just about to read, and a notification pops up. You're just about to work, and the urge to check social media for a minute appears, and that minute turns into an hour. Distraction is the modern shinobi's greatest enemy, and the way to fight it isn't by hating the digital world, but by training your mind to remain present on a single point. Small but effective practices. Turn off notifications when working. Limit social media consumption to 1 hour a day. Use the morning hours before the world gets loud to complete the most important task. Treat your focus like a treasure. Only give it to what deserves it. In a world racing to split your attention, focus is the new form of wealth. And the modern shinobi is an attention billionaire because they know where their mental energy should be directed. Discipline, the quiet path that lifts you up. There is no quick path to becoming strong. Whether a shinobi or a modern creative worker, everyone grows from the same thing: discipline without a spotlight. Discipline isn't cool. It isn't thrilling. It doesn't draw admiration. But that's where its power lies. It shapes you while the world isn't looking. Every day, little by little, nothing spectacular, but every step leads to real change. And when the results finally show one day, others will call it luck. But that luck is simply the result of thousands of nights of practice, without a single witness. Working in silence doesn't mean you are alone. In fact, in silence, you connect with something greater, the rhythm of nature, the energy of concentration, and the calm of your inner self. The shinobi doesn't need a stage because the true stage is within themselves. So if you feel like you're walking alone, keep walking. If no one is praising you, keep practicing. If no one knows your struggle, keep working. Because in the end, your results will speak louder than your words. And when that happens, The world will ask, "Where did all this come from?" And you will simply answer, softly, "From the shadow that kept working."
Chapter 5. Emotional Control, the Shinobi's Secret Sword. For a shinobi, the sharpest sword wasn't the katana at their hip, it was mastery over themselves. Because the greatest enemy in any battle is not another person, but the reaction from within. In the past, during shinobi training, students were taught one simple yet most difficult lesson to master. Before you master the sword, master your breath. This lesson wasn't a metaphor. Every training session began by sitting silently, listening to their heartbeat, observing the air moving in and out. They learned not to react quickly, but to respond with awareness. Because on any mission, even the slightest anger could mean death. One reckless step could ruin everything. And that principle still holds true in the modern world, only the battlefield has changed. Today, your enemy isn't a samurai in the mist, but a sharp online comment, workplace competition, financial pressure, and social injustices that can make your chest burn. Yet, for the modern shinobi, one thing remains the same. An uncontrolled reaction is a defeat. In this fast-paced era, we live under constant pressure to respond immediately. Notifications, messages, opinions, gossip, they all push us to react spontaneously. But every quick reaction is often just another form of losing control. The modern shinobi learns to delay their reaction, not out of fear, but out of awareness. Every extra second before we react is space to think, and in that space, wisdom emerges. Emotions are like waves. We can't stop them, but we can learn to surf on top of them. The shinobi didn't try to kill their emotions, they channeled them. Anger can become fuel. Disappointment can become a teacher. Envy can transform into inspiration. Anxiety can become an alarm to move. But all of this is only possible if we have inner control. Without control, all those emotions turn into poison. With control, they become power. Let's look at a real-world example. Her name was Laris, a former employee at a famously intense startup. She worked there for 4 years, giving her best, often working late, often conceding, often saving projects on the brink of failure. Yet, when restructuring came, she was the one let go. Her position was given to someone newer, younger, and more appealing on social media. What hurt more, her manager said in front of the team, "Laris is good, but she lacks charisma. We need someone who sells better." Those words were like a knife. Her friends looked at her with pity, and inside her anger boiled. But instead of exploding, Laris just gave a faint smile. She bowed her head, said thank you, and left the room without another word. That night at home, Laris cried. But afterwards, she took out a notebook and wrote one sentence on the first page. "I will prove that calm is not weak." She then started building something from scratch, a small digital design agency. No announcements, no emotional posts on social media, no subtle jobs at her former boss. She just worked quietly, studied day and night, and improved her craft every single day. Whenever anger arose, she wrote, "Turn this into energy." Whenever envy appeared, seeing her former colleagues praised, she wrote, "Do better work." Whenever anxiety came, she took a breath and wrote, "Remember, control is strength." 2 years passed. Her agency grew. She started landing big clients, including the company she used to work for. And more interestingly, her old manager contacted Laris for a project collaboration. In that meeting, the manager said, "I've always admired that you never spoke badly about the company after you left." Laris just smiled. "If I'd been busy hating, I wouldn't have had time to grow," she said softly. Laris's story isn't just a success story. It's proof that self-control is the highest form of strength. A true shinobi knows anyone can attack, but only a few can restrain themselves.
And in the modern world, the ability to remain calm amidst chaos is a weapon sharper than any sword. Thoughty, the Shinobi philosophy. Emotions are not the enemy, but a mirror. In ancient training, Shinobi weren't forbidden from feeling anger or fear. Instead, they were taught to observe those feelings without being swept away. When anger comes, look at it like smoke. It appears, thickens, then disappears. This principle can be applied in the modern world through simple practices. When angry, don't immediately reply to a message or comment. Wait 10 minutes. When disappointed, don't write a public post or rant. Write in a private journal. When envious, say silently in your heart, "They deserve that. My time will come too." When anxious, focus your mind on your breath, because your breath is the anchor of awareness. Over time, you'll discover something amazing. Calm doesn't come from the outside world, but from your ability to maintain control within. Calm is not weakness. Many people mistake silence for defeat, but in reality, behind that silence often lies a strength the world doesn't yet understand. Being calm is not a sign of surrender. It's a sign you've stopped fighting things you can't control. The modern shinobi doesn't fight everything. They choose their battles carefully. They know when to be still, when to move, and when to let go. And that is why they almost always win, because they don't waste energy on unnecessary wars. Calmness as a strategy. There's a quote from the classic war text Bansen Shukai that fits perfectly. Calmness is the mist that conceals your intent. It means that in calmness, no one can read your moves. An angry person is predictable. A panicked person is easily defeated. But a calm person is hard to face because they think. They don't just react. The shinobi used calm to deceive their enemies. We can use it to conquer life's pressures. When the world demands a quick reaction, be still for a moment, because a moment of silence can save a lifetime of decisions. So if you ever feel underestimated, insulted, or misunderstood, remember Laris's story and the shinobi principle. Let your actions be the most elegant form of revenge. There is no strength more beautiful than the calm born from self-control. Anger can break things, but calm can build everything back. Be silent, not because you are defeated, but because you know a true sword does not need to be swung to make the opponent retreat.
Chapter 6. Detachment. The art of letting go and staying unattached. In this glittering world, everyone seems to be struggling to be seen. We measure our self-worth by the number of likes we get, how often our name is mentioned, how quickly others acknowledge our existence. But for a true shinobi, recognition is not the goal. It is the trap. Because the moment someone starts chasing recognition, they stop walking their own quiet path. The shinobi philosophy. Unattached, unharmed. In the ancient text Shinobi Hiden, there is one principle often taught to young students. He who is attached will be drawn in. He who is drawn in will be hurt. Shinobi were trained to move without relying on praise or hatred. They learned to be like a shadow, not desiring the spotlight, nor fearing the darkness. For once a person becomes attached to an outcome, they lose their freedom to act. On the battlefield, this could mean life or death. But in the modern world, detachment is about inner freedom. Freedom from ego, from expectations, from the world's judgments. Releasing the ego, finding peace. The ego always whispers, soft but sure. Look at me, acknowledge me, praise me. And the modern world gives that whisper a microphone. Everyone can perform, everyone can speak, everyone can have a stage. Yet the harder we try to be heard, the more we lose our depth. The shinobi never forced the world to acknowledge their existence.
They let the results speak for themselves. And that is where true peace lies, when you stop proving and start truly living. Arka and the silence that set him free. Arka used to be an ambitious young photographer. He loved art, but secretly he loved the praise that followed even more. Every time he posted a photo, he waited for the reaction. How many likes, who commented, how quickly his work was shared. Over time, he no longer took photos out of love, but out of fear of not being seen. He began to lose his way. His work improved technically, but his heart felt empty. One night, exhausted, Arka decided to leave all his social media platforms. No announcement, no long explanation. He just felt he needed silence. Some friends thought he was strange. Others felt sorry for him. But within that silence, Arka found something he didn't expect. Himself. In the days that followed, he returned to the forests, mountains, and oceans, places with no notifications. He took photos for himself, not for anyone else. He saved the results in a private folder, writing a small note on each photo. This is just between me and nature. Month after month, he began to feel light. No more pressure to be liked, no more urge to compete with anyone. He started to fully enjoy the moment. Watching the light, hearing the wind, feeling time pass without any burden. One day, a friend rediscovered Arka's work and asked him to be in an exhibition. His photos were displayed without his name. Yet, precisely because they were anonymous, the photos received extraordinary attention. Visitors said, "These photos have a soul. They're not like works that try to shout." Arka smiled when he heard that. In silence, he knew this was the peak of freedom, to create without being attached to recognition. Not attached to praise or blame. Being a modern shinobi means walking through a storm of opinions without being blown to the left or to the right. The shinobi isn't overly happy when praised and doesn't fall too hard when criticized, because they know both praise and blame are just reflections, not the ultimate truth. For the shinobi, praise can be intoxicating, blame can be blinding. And both, if followed too closely, will make a person lose their way. Detachment doesn't mean not caring. Detachment means you still care, but you are not controlled by it. Like a leaf floating on a river. It doesn't fight the current, but it doesn't sink because of it either. Ego and expectation, the two enemies in the shadows. Ego is an enemy that's good at disguising itself. It often pretends to be motivation when it only wants validation. Expectation is the same. We often think we're fighting for a dream when we're really just wanting to be acknowledged. The modern shinobi must be able to tell the difference. If you work hard so others will admire you, that's ego. If you work hard because you love the process, that's dedication. The shinobi doesn't chase visible results because they know what is visible easily disappears. What is unseen lasts forever. Detachment is not surrender. It is liberation. Many people misunderstand, thinking letting go means to stop caring. On the contrary, detachment allows a person to care more deeply without being burned by it. When you are not attached to the outcome, you can fully enjoy the process. When you are not attached to opinions, you can listen with clarity. When you are not attached to the fear of loss, you can love sincerely. The modern shinobi lives by the principle: do it with all your heart. then release it with all your soul. Because true beauty doesn't come from great victories, but from a heart that remains calm when things don't go according to plan. Shinobi-style detachment practices. 1. Be silent after praise. When someone praises you, don't rush to say thank you with pride. Bow your head, take a breath, and say in your heart, "This isn't mine. It's just the result of hard work and time." 2. Be calm after criticism. When someone insults you, don't rush to retaliate. See those words like shadows on water. They come and go. You don't need to catch them, just let them pass. 3. Be still after success. When you achieve something, resist the urge to announce it immediately. Enjoy the gratitude in silence, for the purest gratitude is that which is heard only by God and yourself. 4. Let go after failure. Don't let failure stick to your chest for too long. Take the lesson, discard the rest. Because the shinobi doesn't live in the past, they live for the next mission. _image_. Becoming unattached, becoming unbeatable. In the end, detachment isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's about not being ruled by the world. You can work hard, love, dream, and strive without losing your inner balance. Like a shadow in the night, the shinobi walks between praise and blame without losing their form. Because they know, he who is attached will suffer. He who lets go will be free. And when you learn to let go, you no longer need the world to acknowledge you, because you have found something far deeper, true tranquility.
Chapter 7. Thinking Like a Shadow. The Strategy of the Unpredictable Life. A shadow is never clearly defined. It is present, but cannot be grasped. It follows the light, but never submits to it. And therein lies the shinobi's secret: to be present without being detected, to move without being predictable. In a fast-paced world where everyone wants to appear smart, efficient, and always have an answer, thinking like a shadow is a nearly extinct skill. The ability to delay conclusions, to observe from angles others don't notice, and to act in uncommon yet precisely effective ways. The shinobi philosophy. The obvious path is not the true path. One of the classic lessons in shinobi training is this: if the enemy knows where you are going, you have already lost before setting out. This means never think in predictable patterns. Shinobi studied the terrain, observed the enemy's habits, and moved from an unexpected direction. They knew that the greatest strength lies not in power, but in surprise. And in the modern world, this strategy is just as important. In your career, business, or personal life, being too predictable means being too easy to defeat. While those who can think like a shadow, who are silent yet sharp, calm yet strategic, often win battles without needing to fight. The art of unpredictable thinking. Thinking like a shadow means refusing to think in a straight line. It doesn't mean being deceitful, but rather being intelligent in reading space and time. For example, when everyone else rushes to be at the front, the shinobi chooses to strengthen the foundation from behind. When people react emotionally, the shinobi observes the direction of the wind before speaking. When the world demands a quick answer, the shinobi delays their response,
to avoid revealing a pattern. They know that the first to move is not always the wisest. Sometimes staying still for a moment is the most strategic move. Thinking from the shadows, the inversion pattern. Shinobi trained themselves to think from the opposite side. They didn't just ask how to win, but also how not to lose. They didn't ask how to be successful, but what makes people fail and how to avoid it. This is called the inversion pattern, a way of thinking by flipping the perspective. And this pattern allows them to see things that escape most people's notice. For instance, while the modern world is busy chasing attention, a shinobi asks, "How can I remain effective without having to be seen?" This question leads to unusual steps, but often ones that are more powerful than those taken by people who talk a lot. Becoming wise in your moves. The shinobi was never hasty. Every decision they made was the result of long observation. They knew that the world always judges based on speed, but they judged based on accuracy. A quick step might get you there first, but the right step means you never have to turn back. Thinking wisely means knowing when to move, when to wait, and when to hold back. And that wisdom only appears if a person has the courage to resist impulse. Not every opportunity must be taken. Not every invitation must be accepted. Not every comment must be answered. Sometimes what you don't do shapes your future more than what you do. A story. The strange move of an eagle. Her name was Nara, a young Japanese woman working in technology. She was known as intelligent, fast, and full of potential. Yet after 5 years at a large company, she felt her spirit growing tired. The routine, other people's ambitions, meaningless meetings. One day, while everyone in her office was competing for a promotion, Nara made a decision that confused everyone. She resigned, not to move to another company, not to take a long vacation. She simply said, "I want to be still and learn something completely unrelated to my job." Her friends laughed. Some even said, "What a waste. You were so close to becoming a manager." But Nara didn't care. She knew there was something inside her that needed space. Not recognition, but clarity. For 6 months, she disappeared. No social media posts, no news, no showing off. All she did was read, write, and teach herself product design. While others were busy chasing the title of Manager of the Year, Nara was learning how to create digital tools for farmers in remote areas, so they could sell their harvest directly to the market. A year later, she launched a small prototype with 2 friends. At first, it seemed simple, even strange. Who cared about a farming app in an age where everyone was talking about AI and the metaverse? But precisely because it was strange, Nora's idea succeeded. Her app was accepted into a social incubator and received international support. 3 years after that weird decision, her project became one of the most successful social startups in Asia. In an interview, she said, "I didn't want to be the fastest person. I just wanted to walk a path nobody else had taken." The wisdom of the shadow. Not every move needs to be understood. The shinobi knew that sometimes the world will not understand your moves, and that's okay. They didn't explain every action, because explaining too soon could kill the momentum. In life, there is a time for silence, allowing plans to grow under protection. A strange move isn't always wrong. It might be the purest form of clarity. A wise person knows when to move straight, when to turn, and when to slip away on a path unseen by anyone. One who thinks like a shadow does not avoid the light. They just know when the light is too blinding. Modern shinobi tactics. Being unpredictable in a world that can guess everything. 1. Resist common habits. If others always react quickly, you react slowly. If they speak loudly, you choose to speak softly. The world will pause for a moment, and that's when you begin to take control. 2. Design your moves in secret. Don't let anyone know your full plan until the time is right.
A shinobi never displays their sword before striking. 3. Observe, don't just act. Every person you meet is a training ground for observation. Listen more, and the world will reveal secrets that are never written down. 4. Learn to think from the reverse side. While others are busy copying the winners, study why the losers lost. Therein lies a wisdom that is quieter but more powerful. Shinobi reflection. Shadow mind training. A shadow doesn't need to stand out to dominate a space. It just needs to know where the light is. Reflect on today. Are your moves predictable? Can the world read your plans too easily? If yes, then it's time to learn to move from a different angle. Not to deceive, but to keep your direction truly your own. Train yourself to delay small decisions for one day. See how many things become clearer when you're not in a hurry. From that simple practice, you will begin to feel the power of thinking like a shadow. Not speaking much, but always a step deeper than the rest.
Chapter 8. Silence is Strength. In a noisy world, silence is the most courageous form of rebellion. Every day, we are chased by notifications, news, opinions, and the digital clamor demanding instant responses. We live in a flood of words and sounds, from the outside and from inside our own heads. Yet, the shinobi knew something the modern world often forgets. The most powerful voice is born from long silence. For the shinobi, silence is not a weakness, but a hidden strength, a place where they sharpen their calm, nurture their focus, and read the world without needing to be loud. The philosophy of silence in the shinobi world. In ancient Japanese texts, there is a saying, "The ninja hides not only from the enemy, but also from the noise within their own heart." They train themselves not to react to any sound, whether threat, praise, or fear, because they knew the noisiest thing in this world is not the external commotion, but the inner turmoil. Silence is the highest practice of self-mastery. When the world runs, the shinobi sits still. When everyone wants to be heard, the shinobi chooses to listen. When others speak, the shinobi reflects, and that is where they find their direction. The stillness that strengthens mind and intuition. In modern times, we often mistake activity for progress. But the human brain isn't designed to be constantly active without breaks. Every time you stop and become still, your brain starts connecting things that previously seemed random. That's why the best ideas often appear when you aren't trying, while showering, walking, or simply sitting in silence. The shinobi knew this secret long before science explained it. They created moments of silence to regulate their breath, calm their minds, and unify their focus with their bodies. From this place comes sharp intuition, the ability to sense direction without having to think hard. In the modern world, intuition is often underestimated. But intuition isn't some mystical power, it's the result of trained silence. When you are calm, you can hear the small voice inside that says, "It's your time to move," or "Don't take that path." Silence gives your inner voice the space to be heard. Modern shinobi meditation techniques. Unlike meditation focused solely on spirituality, shinobi meditation is more about clarity and action. Its goal isn't enlightenment, but precision. Here are some practices anyone can do in the modern world. 1. The 5-minute silence ritual. Every morning before touching your phone, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Focus on your breath. Let your thoughts run, but don't chase a single one. Afterwards, ask yourself one question. What are the 3 things most worthy of my energy today? This simple practice will change how you work for the rest of the day. 2. Observation without judgment. For 10 minutes, observe the world around you without labeling anything as beautiful, ugly, or weird. This trains you to be an observer, not just a reactor, a crucial habit for every modern shinobi. 3. The silent reset in the middle of the day.
Amid the busyness, find 15 minutes to be completely silent. Turn off all devices, close your eyes, sit up straight, and listen to your breath. This calm will become a recharge space that no form of entertainment can provide. A story, the silent hour, a successful figure's ritual of stillness. In the business world, many successful people have unique habits. One of them is Kenji Watanabe, a tech entrepreneur from Osaka who is famously absent from social media, even though his company is worth billions of yen. When asked the secret to his focus, Kenji simply replied, "I have 1 hour every morning that cannot be disturbed by anyone. It's not work time, it's silence time." Every day at 5 a.m. before sunrise, Kenji sits in his living room with a cup of green tea. No music, no phone, no news. He just sits, watches the sky turn blue, and allows his mind to slowly clear. Everyone in his company knows. Anyone who tries to contact him during that hour will be ignored. He calls this time his silent hour. During that 1 hour, Kenji doesn't think about business strategies or project plans. He simply practices mindful awareness of his own presence. Sometimes he writes one short sentence in his notebook, like, "Today, I will not rush," or "Not everything needs to be finished today." Strangely, it's from these silent hours that his biggest decisions emerge. Not from meetings, not from data, but from tranquility. He says, "When you are silent long enough, the world starts speaking to you." Many other great leaders have similar rituals. Warren Buffett reads for hours in silence. Bill Gates has his Think Week. And Zen monks practice Zazen, sitting in silence to listen to the sound of the world from within. The forms of silence may differ, but the result is always the same: clarity. Why silence is strength, not weakness. Modern people often mistake silence for being passive, but silence is preparation before action. The shinobi weren't quiet because they were afraid, but because they knew the right time to speak. Silence is the space where the mind sharpens its own sword. The quietest ones are often the most dangerous, not because they want to attack, but because they know when to move. In silence, you learn to hold back spontaneous reactions, to delay words you might later regret, and to filter your intentions before they turn into actions. The more silent you are, the deeper you understand your own motives. And when you know yourself, you are no longer easily shaken by the noise of the world. Shinobi reflection. Silence practice for inner strength. Try this simple practice every night before sleep. 1. Sit in silence for 5 minutes, with no lights and no music. Feel your body breathing, and then ask in your heart, "What made me noisy inside today?" Listen to the answer without judgment. Do this for 7 days in a row. You will start to notice a pattern. The voice inside you will become quieter but clearer. And at that point, you will understand one thing. Silence does not mean empty. It is the space where your best energy gathers. When you can be still without anxiety, you have become a true shinobi in the modern world. You don't need to shout to be heard, because your calm alone is loud enough to move the world.
Chapter 9. Protecting your energy from social poison. There is a kind of war that makes no sound. No clashing swords, no traces of blood, just words, screens, and notifications that slowly pierce your awareness. This is the energy war of the digital age. In the world of the ancient shinobi, the enemy could be seen. But today, the most dangerous enemy has no face. It disguises itself as drama, gossip, negative comments, sensational news, and endless debates. This enemy doesn't kill the body, but slowly weakens the soul. The shinobi didn't just fight to survive, but also to keep themselves from being corrupted by the world. Social poison, the new invisible war. Every time you open social media, you open a portal to thousands of other people's emotions. Anger, envy, disappointment, cynicism, anxiety, they all mix on a single screen. We think of it as entertainment, but it's actually a collective energy attack. Your body can't tell the difference between real drama and digital drama. Your brain still produces adrenaline, your heart is still disturbed, your focus still leaks away. And like a poison that drips slowly, drop by drop, other people's emotions begin to infect you without you even realizing it. The shinobi knew the danger of such poisons all too well. They learned to filter, not just their food and air, but also their information and interactions. Because they knew not everything deserves to enter your mind. The shinobi philosophy: energy is life. In ancient shinobi training, there was one simple but profound principle. Energy is breath. He who loses control of his breath loses control of his life. In the modern world, breath can be understood as inner energy, focus, calm, and mental vitality. Every time you engage in a pointless debate, every time you stare at bad news for hours, every time you envy someone else's life on a screen, you are unconsciously exhaling your energy. The shinobi knew the danger of such poisons all too well. They learned to filter not just their food and air, but also their information and interactions. Because they knew not everything deserves to enter your mind. Protecting personal energy in a noisy world. The modern shinobi cannot live without technology, but they can master technology with awareness. Here are some simple yet powerful ways to keep your energy clean. 1. Reduce your consumption of other people's emotions. Before opening social media, ask yourself, am I ready to receive energy from these people today? If not, don't open it. A small decision like this can save your mood and productivity for the entire day. 2. Avoid debates that add no value. Every time you want to reply to a negative comment, remember one shinobi principle. The best victory is the one that requires no battle. You don't need to prove anything to someone who just wants to provoke a reaction. Staying silent is the highest form of self-mastery. 3. Periodic digital fasting. One day a week without a phone can feel like a long meditation. You don't need to be extreme, just a few solid hours without notifications. Let the world run without you monitoring it. You'll be surprised how clear your mind feels afterwards. 4. Choose your energy circle wisely. Shinobi didn't train in crowds. They chose who was worthy of their presence, because they knew a person's vibration can either strengthen or drain you. In modern times, this means being selective about who you follow, who you listen to, and who you trust. A true story. A life transformed by shutting out negativity. There was a man named Juno, a young designer from Nagasaki. He was known for being active on social media, following trends, debating political issues, and often getting involved in comment drama. Every morning he opened the news, and every night he ended his day feeling angry. Without realizing it, his life was constantly tense. Then one day, when burnout started to hit hard, Juno made a simple but radical decision. He stopped following all news accounts, disabled comments, and stopped reading gossip. For the first 2 weeks, he felt empty, like he was losing something that made him feel alive. But slowly, his body began to feel lighter. He started sleeping better, his mind grew calmer, and his design ideas began to flow again. A month passed, and he began to realize that what had been exhausting him wasn't his work, but his anger towards things that didn't even concern his own life. A year later, his productivity had skyrocketed. He had more time to create, more time for his family, and ironically, it was when he stopped talking that clients and success started coming to him on their own. When asked what his secret was, Juno smiled and said, "I stopped watching dramas that weren't mine."
The Modern Shinobi and Energy Hygiene. Imagine your energy is like clear water in a container. Every time you get angry, envious, or engage in drama, a drop of ink falls into it. Maybe one drop isn't noticeable, but over time, the water becomes murky. And murky water can't reflect light clearly. The shinobi kept their water clear. They didn't let other people's words pollute the tranquility they had worked so hard to build. They knew that in a busy world, clarity is a form of luxury. Shinobi techniques for protecting your energy. 1. Limit reactions, extend the pause. Every time you're tempted to react, count to 3 breaths. If after that you still want to respond, then respond. Often, after 3 breaths, the urge disappears and your energy is saved. 2. Use shadow mode. Be an observer without always needing to be seen. Not everything needs a comment, not every trend needs to be followed. Sometimes your power lies precisely in your silence. 3. Build an energy recovery routine. Every night, do something calming. Read, write in a journal, or just gaze at the sky. Return to your breath. Cleanse your mind. Tomorrow morning, the world can remain noisy, but you will be immune. Shinobi reflection. Energy hygiene practice. Try this exercise tonight. 1. Close your eyes and recall 3 things that drained you today. 2. Say in your heart, I do not need to carry this with me. 3. Imagine it all dissolving like ink in water, leaving the water clear again. Afterwards, feel your body. Calm, light, and clear, like water in the early morning, untouched by anyone. The modern shinobi doesn't need steel armor. They only need awareness. Because in the end, the strongest are not the loudest, but the cleanest from the world's poisons. In a world full of noise, those who guard their clarity will always be the light.
Chapter 10. Observation. To see without being seen. The one who speaks will be heard for a moment, but the one who observes will understand forever. In shinobi training, before a person was taught how to attack, they were first taught how to see. They learned to read the direction of the wind, to hear footsteps from a distance, to guess an enemy's position from the slow-moving shadows of leaves. And that lesson wasn't just about the battlefield. It was about life. Because in every relationship, job, or major decision, the strongest isn't the one who acts the fastest, but the one who observes the most keenly. The shinobi philosophy, the eyes that never sleep. A shinobi never moved without reading their surroundings. They paid attention to people's habits, the rhythm of their steps, and the smallest changes in their environment. For them, information was a weapon. In the modern world, that concept hasn't changed. Only its form has. We are no longer spying on enemies at night, but we still need to see without being seen. What does that mean? It means to listen more, to understand a situation before reacting, and to read the direction before taking a step. That is the art of observation, to be a presence that is unobtrusive yet full of awareness. Observing before acting. The power of silent analysis. The modern world is in too much of a hurry to make decisions. Many people speak first and think later, while the shinobi knew that every word spoken is a sword that cannot be taken back. Observation doesn't mean being passive. It is the phase of gathering energy and data before a big move. In silence, a person can see things that remain invisible to those who are busy talking. Just look at the people around you. Who talks the most? Who stays quiet the most? Very often, it's the quietest one who knows the most. Seeing the pattern behind the pattern. Shinobi were trained to read small patterns,
a change in an opponent's expression, the direction of a gaze, the way someone breathes. From these, they knew when to advance and when to retreat. In the working world, the same skill is called emotional intelligence or situational awareness. It's the ability to understand dynamics without being told. For example, an employee can sense when their boss is stressed without hearing a complaint, or know when a coworker needs help just from the tone of their voice. People like this seem lucky because they always make well-timed decisions, but in reality, they just have one simple skill. They pay real attention. The power of the silent observer. A great shinobi remained unseen because they blended into the environment. They didn't make noises that drew attention. It's the same for a true observer. They know the best observation is done in silence. When you are talking, you close the door to information. When you are listening, the world opens its door to you. A modern shinobi knows when to stop talking and start listening between the lines, because often the truth isn't spoken, it's only felt. A story. The observer who was never caught. Her name was Ditra, a young employee at a business consulting firm in Jakarta. In that office, everyone wanted to look like the smartest person. Every meeting was an arena for arguments, every project a contest to show off. But Ditra was different. She rarely spoke. She always sat in the corner of the room taking notes, observing who spoke the most and who most often changed the subject. Many coworkers thought she was quiet and unambitious. What they didn't know was that Ditra's silence was observation. She knew who truly understood the work, who was just good at talking, and who she could help quietly to keep the team stable. When a crisis hit, a major project failed. A client was furious, the team was in chaos. The eloquent people started to panic. But Ditra remained calm. She had observed the pattern of mistakes from the beginning. Incomplete data, overlapping communication, clashing egos. Without much talk, she proposed one simple solution to her manager, changing the project reporting system to be more transparent. That small step ended up saving the company's biggest client. A month later, Ditra was called into the director's office. She didn't know that her silence had been noticed all along. The director said, "You might be the one who speaks the least in the room, but you are the one who sees the most." Ditra was promoted to project coordinator, not because of her rhetoric, but because of her sharp observation. The lesson from Ditra, the value of silence. Ditra's story reminds us that in a world full of noise, the ability to see without needing to be seen is a rare form of intelligence. We live in a time when everyone wants to be heard, but very few truly listen. Yet it's precisely from the ability to observe that empathy, intuition, and sound decisions are born. The shinobi knew that good action comes from long observation. No attack was launched before enough information was gathered. They didn't guess. They read the world with clear eyes. Modern shinobi observation techniques. 1. Look longer than feels uncomfortable. When talking with someone, allow for pauses. Observe body language, not just words. The most important information often appears after the person feels you aren't in a hurry. 2. Train yourself not to judge immediately. Don't be quick to label people or situations. Sometimes what looks bad is just in the process of becoming good. Sharp observation is always preceded by patience. 3. Observe your own daily patterns. A shinobi observed not just the outside world, but themselves too. Notice when you are most productive, when you get emotional, and what triggers your focus. From this, you learn to be an observer of your own life. 4. Practice shadow mode. Try to be present in a conversation without needing to be the center of attention. Feel what it's like to see without being seen. This practice will cultivate a sharp awareness. You'll start to read the direction of the energy around you. Shinobi reflection. Silent observation practice. Try this simple exercise tonight. 1. Sit in a public place, a cafe, a park, a bus stop, and don't touch your phone for 10 minutes. Observe the people passing by. Notice how they walk, talk, carry themselves. Don't judge, just observe. Afterwards, reflect. What did I see when I stopped wanting to be seen?
This exercise is simple, but profound. The more you do it, the more you realize the world offers many clues. You just need to be still long enough to see them. A true shinobi doesn't need the spotlight to know the way. They read the world from the movement of shadows, not from the sound of the crowd.
Chapter 11. The Energy of Focus. Finishing one thing completely. A shinobi does not strike in all directions. They wait, they observe, and when the moment arrives, they eliminate a single target with total perfection. In this fast-paced world, focus is a rare commodity. People are easily tempted to start many things at once, starting a new business before the old one is stable, working on 5 projects without finishing a single one properly, or filling their heads with so many plans they forget to execute even one of them consistently. But for the shinobi, focus is the highest form of strength. They don't run everywhere. They penetrate a single point, right on target. The shinobi philosophy. One mission, one spirit. Every shinobi in history was trained with one main principle. Complete the mission, not the number of tasks. In a world full of distractions, they couldn't afford to let their minds scatter. A single second of lost focus could mean losing their life. The philosophy is simple yet profound. One perfect step is better than 10 half-hearted ones. In a modern context, this philosophy is about total, concentrated energy. A person who focuses all their attention on one thing will surpass someone who is busy with 10 things at once. The power of total concentration. Imagine sunlight. When it shines on the earth, it's warm but doesn't burn. But when that light is concentrated through a magnifying glass, it can start a fire. That is what focus is like. Your mental energy is never lost. It just gets scattered in too many directions. Your task isn't to find a new energy, but to gather it into a single point. The shinobi trained themselves to lock their full awareness onto one mission. No notifications, no confusion, no curiosity about other things. The world could be noisy, but inside them there was only one frequency: finishing. Focus is not a talent, but a practice. Many people think focus is an innate talent, but it's not. Focus is a mental muscle that glows through disciplined practice. Shinobi trained their focus with a technique called zanshin, a state of total awareness that remains alive even after the mission is over. They practiced for hours just to stare at a single point without blinking, to walk silently for dozens of steps without losing balance. The goal wasn't just physical agility, but mental stability. You can train the same thing. Every time you're tempted to switch tasks before finishing, remember, energy that moves before its time is a defeat. A story. The programmer who refused to multitask. His name was Reno, a software developer in Bandung. He was known as odd for one thing: he refused to multitask. While his colleagues had 10 tabs open on their screens at once, Reno only had one. He had a ritual: one project per day, 1 hour without a phone, one target that had to be truly finished. When others called him rigid, Reno just smiled. He knew that the digital world didn't lack ideas, it lacked completion. 3 years passed. Reno didn't have many projects, but the ones he finished were perfect. One of his applications was later bought by a large company. He became a symbol of the silent worker who wins by not being divided. In an interview, he said, "I'm not smart. I just don't let the world borrow my focus." The lesson from Reno: completion is the most tangible silence. We often want to look busy, but being busy doesn't mean being productive. Busy is noisy. Focus is quiet. And it's only in quietness that great work can be finished. The shinobi knew that great results don't come from the number of movements, but from one movement performed with total awareness. They never left a mission halfway. Once they decided on something, all their life's energy was directed there. And when the mission was complete, they returned to calm, without needing any fanfare.
Modern Shinobi focus techniques. 1. Single mission mode, SMM. Choose one important thing each day, just one. Forget the others until that one thing is done. Create a 90-minute block without distractions. No notifications, no chats, no music. Total focus. Finish it. Only then move on to something else. 2. Focus entry ritual, FER. Before working, sit in silence for 1 minute. Take a breath, release all other thoughts, then say in your heart, "My mission today is only this." This simple ritual activates your Shinobi mode. 3. Focus on the process, not the distractions. The world is full of distractions, other people's opinions, social media comments, or fear of failure. But the Shinobi doesn't stare at the wind. They stare at their target. Be like that. Don't let your mental energy leak because of things you can't control. 4. The 100% 0% practice. If you can't give 100% energy, give 0% for now. Don't pretend to focus half-heartedly. It's better to rest completely, then return with full strength. A Shinobi never fights in a state of half-awareness, and neither should you. Shinobi reflection. Silent concentration practice. Work that is half-finished is a burden that will age with you. Try the following exercises to build your focus strength. 1. The 21-day one thing challenge. Choose one habit you want to build. Exercise, writing, reading, or meditation. Do only that for 21 days without adding anything new. Feel how your strength increases not from the number of activities, but from the depth of each step. 2. Shut out the world for 60 minutes. Every day, take 1 hour without notifications, phones, or conversations. Focus on one thing you want to accomplish. It might feel difficult at first, but soon you'll feel something. Calm, solid, and directed. That is the energy of true focus. The Shinobi mantra. Today, I am not doing many things. I am finishing one thing, completely. The Shinobi is not known for the number of their movements, but because every movement matters. Be a Shinobi in your work, in your life, and in your mind. Let go of the temptation to switch and direct all your energy to one point, because at that point, the world can be set ablaze by your focus.
Chapter 12. The Secret Identity. Not everything needs to be known by the world. A Shinobi is not known for who they are, but for what they do in silence. In an age where everything must be shared, from lunch to heartache, being someone who shares nothing is a rare form of courage. Today, people are judged by how open they are on social media, by how much they show, not by how deeply they understand themselves. But the Shinobi teaches the opposite. The deeper something is, the quieter it remains. Shallow water ripples noisily, but deep water stays silent, holding entire worlds within. The Shinobi philosophy, living in two worlds. Shinobi in feudal Japan lived with two identities. By day, they could be ordinary merchants, farmers, or craftsmen. But by night, they transformed into spies, messengers, or guardians of royal secrets. Their identity was a tool, not a burden. They didn't feel the need to show the world who they truly were. Because for the Shinobi, secrecy was a form of protection, not deception. In the modern world, we also have two worlds. The outer world, what is seen, the inner world, what only we know. Balance in life is born when we know when to share and when to protect, when to speak up and when to let silence answer. Protecting your privacy is protecting your power. Many people lose their strength not because they fail, but because they leak their plans too soon. They announce every move, every achievement, every feeling, until there's no space left for their inner energy to develop in silence. The Shinobi knew that energy revealed too quickly loses its edge.
So they practice keeping secrets, not just about their missions, but also about their thoughts, emotions, and personal journeys. Privacy doesn't mean being closed off. It means knowing which parts of yourself must be guarded to stay truly alive. Privacy is the wall that keeps your inner world safe from the opinions of others. Being authentic doesn't mean being naked. We often misunderstand the term authentic. Many think being authentic means having to tell everything. But authenticity isn't about bearing your soul in public. It's about being consistent with your personal values, even when no one is watching. The shinobi weren't pretending. They just didn't need to explain everything. That's the difference between being honest and being overly open. A person can be honest without having to reveal their entire life story. Being authentic doesn't mean inviting everyone into your heart. Being authentic is knowing where that door is and who you allow to cross its threshold. A story. Aruna, the woman who could not be tracked. Aruna was a freelance graphic designer from Yogyakarta. She was known for her subtle, meaningful work that felt deeply human. Yet interestingly, there wasn't a single photo of her on the internet. Her Instagram account was empty, her LinkedIn had no face, and her portfolio contained only her work. Once, a big client asked her, "Why don't you show yourself? You could become famous." Aruna just replied softly, "I want to be known for my results, not my face." That decision made her different. In a creative world full of posturing, Aruna was like the wind, unseen but always felt. She focused on her work, refusing to join the validation race. And strangely, precisely because of her quietness, she received many projects through word of mouth. One client said, "We chose her because we felt she wasn't seeking attention. She just wants to create quietly." Behind the screen, Aruna lived peacefully. No pressure to perform perfectly. No digital drama. No social comparisons. She was free to be herself without an audience. The lesson from Aruna: freedom in being untraceable. Aruna's story reminds us that hiding parts of yourself is not a weakness, but wisdom. We don't need to display everything for our lives to have meaning. We don't have to tell the world to be considered real. The shinobi knew that a secret is not a blocking wall, but a protective space. It's the same in modern life. The more you let the world know, the less room you have to breathe. So learn the art of maintaining mystery, not to hide from the world, but to keep your soul intact amidst the world's noise. Modern shinobi techniques: protecting yourself in an open world. 1. Private mode activation. Choose parts of your life you want to keep for yourself: relationships, family, or your work process. Not everything needs to be shared. Let a small part remain your silent space, a place where you can grow without a spotlight. 2. The power of being unknown. Try doing something you're proud of without telling anyone about it. Feel the freedom of an achievement that doesn't need witnesses to be meaningful. This is a practice in quieting the ego, making you strong from within. 3. Silence in the spotlight. When everyone is talking, try just listening. Silence doesn't always mean defeat. Often it's a sign of depth that needs no proof. 4. The digital door closing ritual. Choose one day each week without social media. Use that time to read, write, or simply organize your thoughts. You will feel a new strength, clarity, lightness, calm. Shinobi reflection, silent identity practice. Only those who know themselves have the right to keep their own secrets. Try this reflective exercise tonight. 1. Write down 5 things you always show the world. Then ask yourself, do all of these really need to be seen by others? 2. Write down 3 things you keep only for yourself. Feel how these 3 things give you a sense of peace. That is the core of your true identity, a space that doesn't need anyone's judgment. 3. Recite the shinobi mantra. I do not need to be seen to be real. It is enough for me to be myself in quietness. Conclusion. The shadow that remains calm. The shinobi lived in secrecy, not out of fear, but because they knew what is too visible is easily attacked. We live in a time where privacy is a luxury. Therefore, being a person whom not everyone knows everything about is a form of wisdom and mental strength.
Be like Aruna.
Let your work, your actions, and your calmness do the talking. The world doesn't need to know everything to value you. It's enough that you know who you are in the silence. A shadow doesn't need a name to remain real under the light.
Chapter 13. Discipline without an audience. A shinobi does not train to be seen. They train to be ready, even when no one knows. We live in an age where every struggle wants to be broadcast. Every process must be documented. Every change must be announced. Yet, in the silence, there are still a handful of people who work without a spotlight, who choose the quiet path not because they fear being seen, but because they know true quality only grows in silent spaces. The shinobi lived in such a space. Their training was witnessed by no one. No cameras, no applause, no recognition. Yet every drop of sweat, every long night, every silent wound forged a strength that didn't even need to be explained. The shinobi philosophy, training in the shadows. A shinobi trained not to perform, but so that when the time came, their body and soul would be ready. They prepared themselves in undramatic ways, practicing movements, sharpening intuition, regulating breath. No one knew when they started or when they finished. That is the meaning of true discipline, doing the right thing even when no one is watching. In the modern world, this principle is rare. We are used to working if there's a deadline, changing if there's external motivation, or striving if there's an audience. Yet, true power is actually born when no one is judging. Consistency, the quiet path to greatness. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about an unwavering commitment even when no one is waiting for the result. The shinobi didn't wait for inspiration. They created it through routine. Day after day, movement after movement, practice after practice. For them, repetition wasn't boredom, it was a form of prayer and action. You don't need to be a shinobi to understand this. Just look at anyone who has succeeded in their field. Those who read every day without showing off, who train physically without posting about it, who wake up earlier not to boast, but because they want to become a sharper version of themselves. A story. Jonan worked as a cleaner at a startup office in London. Every morning before sunrise, he was already there. He swept, mopped, prepared the rooms, all in silence, unnoticed by anyone. One day, during a break, he was sitting in the corner of the room with a worn-out notebook. An employee noticed and asked, "Sir, what are you writing every day?" Jonan smiled. "Learning English, son. You never know. Maybe later I can help at the reception desk." No one took him seriously, but every day for 2 years, Jonan kept studying on his own. He noted down a new word every morning, listened to videos on his phone during breaks, and practiced speaking to himself in silence. No teacher, no courses, no announcements, just quiet discipline. 3 years later, the company opened a new position, a bilingual receptionist. Jonan applied. Quietly. When the interview began, the managers were shocked. He spoke fluently, politely, confidently. He was accepted. Not because of luck, but because of discipline without an audience. Now, every morning when he greets guests in 2 languages, only he knows how many silent mornings he went through to get there. The lesson from Jonan. The stillness that changes destiny. Life isn't about who looks the most diligent, but about who remains diligent even when the world doesn't care. Silent discipline builds a mental muscle that cannot be destroyed by anyone's comments. It gives a sense of trust that doesn't come from external validation, but from the knowledge that I can trust myself.
The modern shinobi doesn't need recognition to keep moving. They know that an unbroadcasted process will last longer because it's done from intent, not from showing off. Modern shinobi techniques. Discipline in silence. Number 1. The silent journal. Every day, write down one small habit you did consistently without anyone knowing it. It doesn't have to be big, just simple things like reading 10 pages, writing for 5 minutes, or a short meditation. After a month, look back. You'll be surprised how much strength grows from things you never showed. Number 2. The Shinobi Dawn Ritual. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than usual. Use that time for one meaningful activity. Reflection, exercise, writing, studying. Don't post anything about it. Let the world keep sleeping while you polish yourself in silence. Number 3. The Witness-Free Challenge. Choose one habit you want to build and don't tell anyone about it. Do it for 90 days. If you succeed, you'll feel something extraordinary. A self-confidence born from results, not from applause. Number 4. The Shinobi Mantra. I do not train to be seen. I train to be ready, even in silence. Shinobi Reflection. Calm in consistency. Take a moment to reflect tonight. What is one thing you could do every day without needing to be praised for it? Could you still be disciplined if no one was paying attention? Write the answers in your heart. If you can say yes, then you have become a true shinobi in modern life. True discipline doesn't need cheers, because the greatest victories happen in quiet rooms. Conclusion. When the shadow keeps moving. The shinobi didn't wait for motivation. They moved because it had become a habit. And that is the difference between those who only dream and those who truly transform. Pharrell is not a legend, but a real example of a human being conquering themselves. And that, in the end, is the most difficult victory. Becoming your own master in silence. The world doesn't need to know your effort. Just let the results speak softly in their own time.
Chapter 14. Becoming the shadow that brings light. A shadow never asks for attention, yet without it, the light would not appear balanced. In a world crowded with noise, sometimes the most impactful people are not those who speak the loudest, but those who work in silence, yet radiate tangible impact. A true shinobi does not live to be known, but so that their existence makes the world a little better, even if no one knows who is behind it. The shinobi philosophy, a light that does not dazzle. A shadow is not the opposite of light, it is its companion. The shinobi understood this deeply. They did not strive to shine the brightest, but to become a reflection of light that guides others. In a modern context, this is silent leadership, leading not with authority but with integrity, not with commands but by example. You can recognize people like this. Someone who never forces their ideas, but whose every word and action brings a sense of calm. They don't speak much, but their presence brings assurance. They're like a spring in the middle of a forest. It doesn't announce itself, but it brings peace to anyone who comes. Silent leadership, leading without many words. In the modern workplace, many people compete to be seen leading. They hold long meetings, speak loudly, or showcase grand visions. But true leaders are the opposite. They set the direction quietly, lead by action, and let their results be their voice. A shinobi in a leadership context knows sometimes the wisest decision is the one not announced. They don't seek recognition, they seek a balance between results and humanity. This kind of leadership isn't about position. It's about a presence that makes others feel safe to grow. A story. Raka, the leader who never shouted. Raka was a design team manager at a small tech company in Bandung. He was known as quiet, almost too calm for some people. During meetings, he rarely spoke. He just listened, took notes, and occasionally asked softly, "Are you sure this is the best for the user?"
A simple question that often changed the course of the entire discussion. His employees, at first, thought Raka lacked ambition. But over time, they began to realize something. Every project Raka handled was always finished on time, without drama, without excessive pressure. He never scolded anyone, but somehow everyone wanted to work better under his guidance. When asked his secret, Raka just smiled and said, "I don't need to make them afraid. I just need to make them believe." And indeed, his trust was his light. He gave room for failure, but never let go of the direction. He didn't talk about responsibility, he exemplified it. And there, his team members learned that true leadership isn't about leading many people, but about inspiring one person wholeheartedly. When the light doesn't come from the spotlight. True leaders like Raka are the modern embodiment of the shinobi. They know when to appear and when to disappear. They know that ego is often the enemy of effectiveness. So they choose to be the shadow that guides, not the light that dazzles. The shinobi did not seek a stage, because they knew that effectiveness is more important than exposure. They knew that the more you talk, the easier you are to read. And the more you are read, the easier you are to shake. Therefore, they chose silence not as an escape, but as a form of conscious control. The shadow philosophy, giving without holding. A true shinobi is not attached to results. They plant a seed and move on. They don't wait for praise for the tree's growth. It's the same with silent leaders. They plant values, not images. They don't need to sign every success with their name. They believe that every good deed will find its own way. They believe that sincere kindness needs no signature. Lessons from the shadow leader. 1. Speak only if it adds value. The more words, the greater the chance of misunderstanding. Choose your words like a sword, sharp, precise, and used only when necessary. 2. Practice a calm presence. A true leader makes others feel safe just by being present. You don't need to shout to be respected, just be someone who can be trusted. 3. Focus on impact, not recognition. Let results be your primary language. When your performance is consistent, the world will know without you having to say it. 4. Do more, say less. The core shinobi principle, actions speak for the unseen. Let your actions be the loudest echo. Shinobi reflections, light without a spotlight. Take a moment to reflect on this. Who are the people who have quietly influenced you to become better? And can you be that kind of person for others without them even realizing it? True leadership doesn't always feel like leading. Sometimes it's just setting an example in silence, giving direction without touching the steering wheel. The shadow that brings light is a soul that has conquered its ego. Conclusion: when the shadow becomes the teacher. After years of practicing silent discipline, a shinobi no longer focuses solely on themselves. They begin to channel their calm into the world. They no longer need to speak to be heard, because their mere presence is enough to bring peace. And that's the pinnacle of this journey, becoming the shadow that brings light. Becoming someone who, without many words, can change the direction of others towards goodness, not with words, but with a silence full of meaning. Light does not need to shout to illuminate. It only needs to be present faithfully.
Chapter 15. The Secret Mission. Building a Legacy Without Showing Off. What is eternal is not the name remembered, but the goodness that lives on even when its name is forgotten. We live in a time when people want to be remembered for who they were, not for what they gave. But for the shinobi, the purpose of life always extended beyond themselves. They didn't ask, "Who will remember me?" Instead, they asked, "What will continue to live after I am gone?" A shinobi's mission was not to become famous, but to leave behind something meaningful, even if the world never knew who was behind it. The shinobi philosophy: work is the eternal breath. In the past, many shinobi had deeds that were never recorded in history, yet their small actions preserved peace, saved lives, and guided the course of civilization. They never stood on a stage of honor, but the world they helped save stood firm. That is how the shinobi built their legacy, not with a great name, but with pure intention and sustainable action. They were aware every deed, no matter how small, is a seed.
And the seed planted with sincerity will grow even in soil that never saw the planter. Living with purpose, not just looking great. We often get trapped in the pursuit of recognition. We want our work to be liked, seen, shared. But when the goal shifts from creating to being seen creating, the soul loses its way. The modern shinobi learns to work with internal intent, not external bait. They understand that true meaning lies not in the spotlight, but in the contribution. What is viral may rise quickly, but what is sincere, even if slow, will live much, much longer. A story. Nameless, yet eternal. In a small town in Kyoto, there lived an old man named Satoshi. He worked as a gardener at a simple temple for over 40 years. Every morning, before sunrise, he swept the leaves, trimmed the branches, and planted flowers along the path to the altar. He never spoke much. He never demanded recognition. People passing by rarely noticed him. The garden was always beautiful, but no one knew who tended to it with such patience. One day, Satoshi passed away at the age of 79. During his small funeral, the head monk told everyone something surprising. Every flower that blooms in this garden is the work of Satoshi's hands. But did you know he planted them so this garden would remain beautiful 100 years after he was gone? He chose types of flowers that would continue their cycle season after season without needing much care. A few years after his death, the temple became one of the most beautiful gardens in Kyoto. Tourists came from various countries praising its beauty, but there was no signboard that read, "Designed by Satoshi." Yet every time those flowers bloomed, Satoshi came back to life in the form of the beauty he left behind. That is the legacy of a true shinobi. Not remembered for their name, but remembered for their influence. Work that needs no spotlight. In the modern world, building a legacy without showing off means working with a long-term vision, not being in a rush to be seen today, because you know something truly valuable needs time to grow. The shinobi did not seek virality, because they knew what rises quickly sinks just as fast, but what grows in silence endures the storm. Imagine someone who writes a book with the sincere intention to help others, not to sell it, but to pass it on. Or someone who creates a social program without attaching their name, and years later that program saves thousands of lives. These are the modern shinobi, people who choose to leave light without leaving a signature. 3 principles of the shinobi legacy. 1. Purpose is more important than popularity. Every action must have a meaning greater than your ego. Ask yourself before you begin, will this be useful even if no one knows I did it? 2. Build systems, not spotlights. Focus on things that can keep running without your presence. True work is not what depends on your existence, but what can live on its own after you are gone. 3. Let the results speak. You don't need to explain yourself to the world. The world will see through the results that endure. And enduring results only come from a process that isn't forced into the light. Shinobi reflection. Becoming a beneficial secret. Take a moment to reflect. What did you do today that will still matter after you are gone? If all the spotlights went out, would you still strive in the same way? The modern shinobi doesn't just live with efficiency, but with long-term intent. They know life is too short to spend on validation, yet long enough to build something that will live after them. Living in the spotlight might make you famous, but living with purpose will make you eternal. Conclusion. The final silence. In the end, every shinobi's journey concludes in silence. Not because they were defeated, but because they achieved the highest tranquility, becoming part of the world without needing to dominate it. They leave a mark that is subtle yet deep, like the shadow of dusk on an old temple wall, not conspicuous, but always there. And perhaps that is the highest meaning of life, to be the shadow that plants light, and the light that keeps shining after the shadow is gone. A true legacy needs no name. It only needs sincerity to keep living in silence.
Chapter 16. Becoming the Modern Shinobi. Living quietly, acting decisively. You don't need to be seen to be influential. You don't need to speak much for the world to hear you.
Imagine a calm lake. No big ripples, no roaring waves. Yet beneath its surface, life is constantly moving. That is how the shinobi lived, still on the surface, but working in silence. In a noisy world like today, being quiet is not a weakness. It is the highest form of spiritual strength. Because in a world busy proving itself, only a few are still willing to be and not just to appear. Summarizing the shinobi's path. This entire journey, from the principles of secrecy, discipline, and self-control to silent leadership, all leads to one core idea: the full awareness that true power is born from depth, not from the spotlight. The modern shinobi isn't about hiding in a literal sense, but about building an inner space that is not easily touched by the outside world. They know when to speak and when to be silent, when to move and when to wait. They don't follow the rhythm of the world. They write their own, quiet but strong. Living with calm and sharpness. The modern shinobi lives with two swords: the sword of calm to conquer reactions and emotions, and the sword of sharpness to cut through bad habits and digital distractions. They are no longer ruled by notifications, comments, or other people's opinions, because they know focus is the source of their strength. In silence, they sharpen their mind. In order, they hone their actions, not because they want to look great, but because they know every small, consistent action will create a massive effect over time. A simple life, a profound impact. Simple does not mean small. Simplicity is the highest form of clarity. The shinobi did not carry many things because they knew that burdens slow you down. They carried only the essentials: intent, calm, and dedication. A simple life allows you to see more clearly what is truly important, what is worth fighting for, and what is better let go. From this simplicity is born sharp focus, and from that focus, lasting change is born. A story. Bayu, the architect of stillness. Bayu was an architect in Yogyakarta. Unlike most young designers busy showcasing their portfolios on social media, Bayu chose a different path. He worked quietly, refusing to chase projects for the sake of popularity. He only took on small projects, simple houses in villages. Yet every house he designed always had one thing in common: warmth, balance, and tranquility. A house doesn't have to be big, he once said. What's important is that the people living in it feel like they are coming home. He wasn't famous. He didn't go viral. But 20 years later, hundreds of families lived happily in houses he had quietly crafted. Their children grew up, prayed, studied, laughed in spaces he had quietly crafted. When asked if he regretted not becoming famous, Bayu smiled and replied, "I don't want to be known by the world. I only want to be known by the tranquility I create." And in that, we understand. That is the true modern shinobi. The final philosophy: the silence that moves the world. The modern shinobi is not a recluse living on a mountain. They live in the midst of the crowd, yet remain whole within themselves. They might sit in an office, a cafe, on a city street, but their mind is not ruled by the world's hustle and bustle. They know the world will always change, but one thing must remain constant: self-control. Being a modern shinobi means practicing mindful living. Focus on what you can control. Accept without attaching. Act without demanding anything in return. And keep moving, even in silence. Shinobi living techniques for the modern world. 1. Start your day with stillness. Before opening your phone, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Feel your breath. Feel your life. This is your inner dojo every morning. 2. Act without announcement. Perform one act of kindness every day without telling anyone. Imagine you are practicing to be the shadow that brings light. 3. One focus, one move. A shinobi does not slash in all directions. They slash only one point, but with perfect sharpness. Choose one thing you want to achieve, finish it, then move to the next.
4. Detach from the spotlight. Remember, you were not created to entertain the world. You were created to realize the world within yourself. Concluding reflection. You don't need to be seen to be influential. Tranquility is the new luxury in the modern world. And you, if you can preserve it, are already far stronger than thousands who shout for attention. Being a modern shinobi is not about rejecting the world, but about refusing to lose yourself in it. You still work, create, love, help, but you do it all with full awareness, without thirsting for the spotlight. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the space where truth can be heard. The grand conclusion, a legacy of silence. One day, when the world no longer remembers your name, may your imprint still be felt in the smile of someone you helped, in the spirit of someone you calmed, in the tranquility you spread through your small actions. Because that is the core of the modern shinobi's life. To be silent does not mean to vanish. To be silent means to work beyond time. You don't need to be seen to be influential. It is enough to be a light that works in silence.
Chapter 17. Hiding the Light. Success without showing off. If your light is too bright, don't let it blind you. An ancient shinobi proverb. In a world that loves the spotlight, showing off and comparing, hiding your success might seem strange. But for a modern shinobi, it's the highest form of wisdom, keeping your light warm, not blinding. A true shinobi doesn't run to the peak just to prove they can. They climb slowly, quietly, and when they reach the top, they enjoy the cool breeze alone, not for a photo, but for gratitude. A light that doesn't need announcing. We live in an era where achievements don't feel real unless they're announced with a long caption or an inspirational story on social media. But in shinobi philosophy, true light doesn't seek the spotlight. It shines where it's meant to. When a flower blooms in the forest, it doesn't shout for the bees to see. The bees come on their own. That's the principle of success without showing off. The modern shinobi knows that a light that's too bright attracts the wrong kind of attention. Envy, jealousy, high expectations, even sabotage. That's why they guard their victories like secrets, calmly, without fuss, but full of gratitude. Why hiding your light is wise. 1. Flaunting success invites distraction. When you're busy displaying the results, you stop focusing on the process. A shinobi knows that after one mission ends, the next one is already waiting. There's no time for long celebrations. 2. A light that's too bright can burn. Sometimes the spotlight makes someone lose their true self. They start living to maintain an image, not their truth. By hiding your light, you keep your essence pure. 3. Staying humble after success is the biggest test. Anyone can be humble when they have nothing, but only a few can remain humble after they have everything. Story. Rara and the small business that never went viral. Rara started a small business in Bandung, selling natural soap from local herbs. Her friends were busy creating flashy ads, paying influencers, and chasing engagement. Rara didn't. She didn't even have a big business account, just a simple website and customers who came through word of mouth. In 5 years, her business grew slowly but surely. Rara never appeared in the news, never joined inspirational young entrepreneur seminars. Yet, without many people realizing, her products were being used in over 30 boutique hotels across Indonesia. When someone asked why she didn't want to be more famous, Rara just smiled. I want the soap to be known, not me. That is the essence of a modern shinobi. They build something meaningful, but don't tie their self-worth to how many people know about it. Success is energy, not a performance. On the shinobi path, success isn't the final goal. It's a vibration of energy, the result of working quietly, perseverance, and self-awareness. You can feel it without displaying it. You can be grateful without flaunting it.
because a shinobi knows quiet energy is far more powerful than noisy applause. True success isn't about who is seen the most, but about who contributes the most without needing to be seen. The philosophy of the shining shadow. A shinobi doesn't avoid the light. They just know how to stand between light and dark, a place where they remain real but not blinding. You are allowed to shine, but don't let your light become a stage. Use it as a lantern for your own journey and for others. When you hide your light, you're not extinguishing it. You're nurturing it, protecting it from the winds of ego and the storms of social validation. Shinobi mental exercise. Hiding your light. 1. Celebrate in silence. When you achieve something, take some time for yourself. Write down your gratitude, not your post. Let only your heart know how hard you fought. 2. Share without announcing. Help someone without tagging your name. Unseen kindness grows an inner strength that can't be bought. 3. Keep moving without stopping. Every time you finish, don't stop there. The shinobi world is one of constant movement. Success isn't a place to rest, but a starting point for a new journey. Reflection. A light that doesn't need the spotlight. There's a strange peace possessed only by those who don't need applause. The silence after an achievement feels like meditation, an inner space where you simply tell yourself, I did it, and that is enough. In the shinobi world, there are no announcements, just the next step, just the mission that continues. Closing message for Chapter 17. Success without showing off isn't about rejecting recognition. It's about choosing wholeness over illusion. You can be successful, wealthy, acknowledged, but never let that take control of your heart. Because the modern shinobi knows what is truly great doesn't need a stage. It only needs the quiet to keep working.
Epilogue. A modern shinobi's prayer. When the world gets too loud, become the silence that brings peace. An old shinobi prayer. Night falls slowly over the city. Lights twinkle in the windows of buildings, cars flow in the distance, while a man stands on a rooftop gazing toward the horizon. He's not a ninja from legends, no mask, no sword. But within him, there's something sharper than steel, awareness. He knows the world won't stop talking. He knows the temptation to be seen, acknowledged, and praised will always be there. But he also knows one thing more important than all of that real life begins when we stop proving and start truly living. Living in the world, but not drowning in it. Being a modern shinobi doesn't mean hiding from the world. It means refusing to lose yourself in it. You still live in the midst of the crowd. You work, love, dream, struggle, but you do it with full presence. You're aware that life isn't measured by the amount of spotlight, but by the depth of your actions. The modern shinobi walks between the outer world and the inner world, holding the sword of logic in one hand and the lantern of awareness in the other. They know when to step forward and when to pause. They don't reject the spotlight, but they don't chase it either. They simply are. A prayer for those who walk in silence. For those who keep working without the spotlight, who light lamps in small rooms without cameras, who pray not for fame, but for peace, this book is a salute to you. You are not alone. You are part of a generation that refuses to be noisy, that chooses the quiet yet meaningful path, that prefers action over words. When the world asks you to prove yourself, answer with quiet action. When the world laughs at your silence, answer with undeniable results. Because a true shinobi doesn't argue with words, they speak through their work. Final reflection. A mission without a name. One day when your life has traveled far, perhaps not many will know how hard you fought, how many times you fell, how many wounds you hid behind your calm smile. But that doesn't matter, because a shinobi's mission isn't to be remembered, but to be carried out. This life isn't about who you become, but about becoming something meaningful for the world, even if the world doesn't know it's from you. That is the deepest secret of the shinobi path. To act without a signature, to give without a name,
to work without a spotlight. A legacy in silence. Someday, others might discover your work. They might say, "This is beautiful. Who made this?" And perhaps your name will no longer be mentioned. But in that silence, you will know that your light has spread like a small flame lighting thousands of other candles. Because true influence doesn't need to know that it's influential. It simply needs to be present, to work, and to keep giving meaning. Silence is both the end and the beginning. At the end of this journey, we return to the beginning, silence. Stillness isn't the absence of sound. It's the birthplace of all meaningful sound. When you are quiet, you can hear yourself. When you hear yourself, you can understand the world. And when you understand the world, you no longer need its validation. A modern shinobi's prayer. May your steps be silent but steady. May your heart be soft yet firm. May you build, not show off. May you give without needing to be seen. May every breath you take be a conscious act from a soul that has found peace and stillness. The modern shinobi no longer hides in the shadows of the night. They walk among people, in offices, on the streets, at home, in the digital world. Yet their heart remains like the night, calm, fast, and full of secret light. Life is not to be seen. Life is to be lived with awareness. Kevin V. Diaz, The Modern Shinobi.